welcome back to my channel. It's day 3. So I hope you've enjoyed the past 2, and if you haven't then you need to go back and check those out first. Not that you have to, but I'd like it if you did. So today's episode is about a little place called Cadoxton, which is in Neath. Now I live in Neath, it's just by Swansea, so if you're not familiar with Wales you probably know where Swansea is, it's quite close to there, okay? And this is going to be a 2-part episode. We're going to start off with the information, and then on part 2, which is going to be tomorrow, I'm going to go down and do a spirit box down there. So like I said, this is in Neath. It's a place called St Cadoxton Church. It was built by the Normans and it has a big fine stained glass window. It also has a kind of wagon ceiling, which is very different. It has a huge cemetery, okay? So the church, it backs onto a large cemetery, and it's actually going about 12 miles long. It goes from Skewen to Glenneath, so if you're familiar with the area then you'll know that that's like a really far distance to have one graveyard. But it's around 12.5 miles, just for you to know. The cemetery actually has ornate graves, so you don't have to be of a certain class to be buried there. You can be lower class or upper class, and then it has more simpler designs for kind of poorer families, and then it has more grand designs for the more rich families. In this graveyard there's a murder stone. If you don't know what a murder stone is, it's basically where a body has been buried and the body belonged to someone who was murdered. Now the kind of aim behind murder stones is to pinpoint the murderer and to make them feel guilty about it. They are a kind of appeal to someone's conscience for them to come forward and admit to the crime that they did, and it's a little bit of a incentive to give themselves up. It's also for other people who may want to murder somebody and it puts them off. So I'm just going to read to you guys what the murder stone actually says, and I'm going to insert a picture of the murder stone now. To record murder. This stone was erected over the body of Margaret Williams, aged 26, a native of Carmarthenshire living in service in this parish, who was found dead with marks of violence on her person in a ditch in the marsh below this churchyard on the morning of Sunday the 14th of July 1822. Although the savage murderer escaped for a season the detection of man, yet God hath set his mark upon him, either for time or eternity, and the cry of blood will assuredly pursue him to certain and terrible righteous judgment. So to dive into the murder a little bit more, the murder was of a girl named Margaret Williams. She was a maid at Cadoxton Farm, and she fell pregnant and she left the farm. Now obviously in those days if you were to fall pregnant without being married, that was frowned upon. So we're not sure if she left on her own accord or if she was asked to leave or forced to leave. So about 10 weeks later she found herself lodged with an older gentleman who lived in the village of Cadoxton, and she stayed there for a little while. We don't know the relationship between her and this gentleman, but we do know that she stayed there. On the 13th of July, which was a Saturday, she walked into town and she bought a sheep's head from Neath Market. Unfortunately, she did not return with the sheep's head. The morning of the 14th of July, Margaret was found in a ditch, lying down, dead, with a basket that had the sheep's head still in it. Now her body was said to have been marked with marks of violence. So she had been strangled and she had had forced marks on her body and her arms. There was allegations thrown at the guy who lived in the farm. Now this would be the son of the man and the woman that owned it. His name was Llewellyn Richards. It was said that he was the father of Margaret's baby, and he was suspected of killing both her and her unborn child. On the Tuesday, things moved faster back in the day, they went to court and there was a jury on to see if they believed that he killed her or not. So the jury were kept in overnight and they came to the decision that there wasn't enough evidence to actually arrest him for the murder of Margaret Williams. He actually ran away from the village then after that because he didn't want to be kind of kept in that box. People still thought that it was his fault and people would still attack him for it, even though he was proved innocent. Now since the murder, nobody has actually been arrested. But there have been a lot of stories with regards to how the murder took place. 50 years later, there was a book written And basically the author, nobody knows now if this was a kind of twisted story on it or if it was something that maybe this man knew. We don't know. But how the story ends is that on Margaret Williams' deathbed, this man called Parry admits to killing her. Parry alleged that he always liked Margaret and that she never really wanted anything to do with him. So he went to try one more time when he saw Margaret and her boyfriend, presumably the farmer's son, in the fair, and he couldn't get anywhere with her basically. She just wasn't interested, she only wanted a boyfriend. And in a kind of rage of madness, he apparently killed Margaret. Now obviously we don't know if this is true, if it's just a story, or whether maybe the author had inside information. There was also a play put on in Neath Fair one year by William Hager and Jack Desmond, and it was called The Fair Maid of Neath. Now this was a kind of dramatised version of what happened, with their assumption of what happened during it, and that was taken with the story of Parry. So that was from the book. Now the stone was erected a year after her death, with hopes that somebody would come forward, but unfortunately nobody ever did. There are a couple more rumours that we can go over, and that is that she was pregnant by a squire and he killed her. Some people still think it was the farmer's son, hence why he ran away to America. Who can blame him? There's also a dramatised version where the killer, no matter who he was, we might not know, left at midnight and the whole village could hear the kind of sounds of the hooves of the horse whilst he ran away, and he was going to the docks in Swansea to catch a ship to America. Obviously that's a dramatised version. And then there's also the fact that this is a really weirdly angled stone. The stone is angled differently to the rest of the stones in the cemetery, and it's actually facing a house opposite it. Now this is the house of who they thought that it was the farmer's son, and it's said that it's faced that way so that they can kind of guilt him into coming forward about it. So that's the story of the murder stone. Now tomorrow I am going to go down with my spirit box and I'm going to film myself being there with the stone. Now there's actually a fence around the stone, so I'm not able to actually sit on it, touch it or anything like that. I am able to get as close as possible and talk to see if I get any answers. Who knows? Maybe I'll solve the mystery of the murder stone in Cadoxton. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Like I said, it's part 1 of part 2. And I'm really excited to go tomorrow and actually explore this place and maybe see if I can get any answers. It's really exciting. So like always guys, I'm leaving the video with a little reminder of never let anyone dull your sparkle. It's not for me to say you